recording machine. There is nobody here at the moment, so please leave your message on this machine with your name and address, and your message will be relayed to Mr. O'Scannell as soon as possible. Thank you.
Should Joseph O'Donnell as a garroa, Boadam Radio Crochan Veg, Ternona Tabo, and Mukutashita Bani Shag.
I'm speaking for Annie Joyce, the rather, we said. She has a cow that she went down in a drain and she didn't get up.
I can't see much of a future in this area for a vet. I can't see much of a future in this area for a farmer to mind a vet. The whole of Connemara, east of or west of Lough Corrib, would be about the same size as County Waterford. I'll be the first to admit that the service is atrocious, but I'll also have to say that I'm working 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in fact, because I mean, it's 3 years ago now since I had a holiday. And to provide this ludicrous service and this atrocious service. So everybody's losing.
Hello? Hello?
Get the thought over here.
Orden, Patti Krangle.
Yeah. Man, we can't do so, it's a small thought of friend.
Oh, shall do that since we hope.
Okay. Yeah, we just stuff with the garden, man, we're at the bunch. Well, in Connemara itself, you have a very large section of the community whose only occupation, shall we say, is farming. In other words, if you take a line west of Lough Corrib to the Atlantic Ocean and Galway Bay in the south and the Killary Harbour in the north, there are about 3,000 farmers. I suppose the number of cattle in this would be maybe 35,000. Now, the average herd size in the Gaeltacht would be 8 to 9 cattle, which is a tiny uneconomic unit. There's no way in the world you could support a man for a year. These are the people that I deal with all the time, and which one never sees on television. When Landmark and these other programmes talk of small farmers, they go to County Roscommon and do fellows with only 30 cows and 20 replacement heifers and 50 bullocks and 200 sows and this kind of thing. When I hear these fellows being called small farmers, I mean, it makes me laugh because, you know, it should take 20 of my clients to make up one of these so-called small farms. The problems that these faced by the farmers here are, the main thing is very bad land, which brings into question whether in fact they should be trying to do any kind of farming at all. That depends on the land. This veterinary practice here can't possibly be compared with other practices in the country, or the normal type practice in the country, because of the huge distances involved. And it's these huge distances which makes practice here so uneconomical. This problem was faced 50 years ago in the north of Scotland, a similar area to this. And at that stage, the British government introduced a Highlands and Islands scheme. And this scheme has been working successfully for the past 50 years. Unless there's some form of government assistance, something like the Highlands and Islands scheme introduced, it's difficult to see how the service can continue at all in the area. The area is very awkward to get through. It's got large uninhabited areas in the interior which you've got to drive through every day. It's got lots of bays and things that you've got to drive around every day. And generally it just takes so long to drive around that you spend possibly half your day driving and the other half working. Okay. Seachtas láin neograch sí bheith? Stealthy fada. An seo, dúgad a chaneál sin?
Níl se go to go hang bo.
Ar faniste.
Oh,
Cyn tú mógam.
you can mission bo what?
Tige.
On you can some like ha.
Cyn tú dribbles near yn sy'n.
Oh, stop.
Hwn i'r parthyn dyn sy'n tag sy'n o'r nir.
Oh,
Gyda bras gan oed I Kelowna cha.
you should bring on so.
Tige. Often people say that a vet's work is very messy and that kind of thing. Well, this applies to any vet in any part of the country, and people say, oh, you know, you have to do rectal examinations and take placentas and all this kind of thing. People who would essentially be squeamish do these things as a matter of course.
Number 5 it has to near so.
You already want them off the money. Get the ones, isn't she?
I'm not too keen on, say, gutting a fish or cleaning a chicken or something, but I've no qualms whatsoever about taking a week-old placenta from a cow in the middle of summer, which may be rank and smelling really high. But I'm not the greatest man ever for tackling other messy jobs which aren't in the course of duty.
Quite don't mind. Come on, Mickey.
A very important difference between working in Connemara and work as a vet in Connemara and other places is that in Connemara all the cattle are to be cut by hand because they're all being tested in sheds or in little bits of fields or whatever. I mean, crushes, cattle crushes for handling the animals are universal now. Every farmer has them, except in Connemara, of course. So you're being in the shed and the cattle are all milling around you and it's a small space and you're getting crushed and walked on, etc. In fact, I used to smoke straight pipes, but I broke so many of those from being crushed in my pocket that I eventually had to go on to crooked pipes only because at least the stem bends around in those things. And at least you have a pipe at the end of the thing. The most serious occupational hazard faced by vets is that they're going to get brucellosis. You know, luckily, Connemara, or the Gaeltacht area anyway, you could say it's 100% free of brucellosis and TB really. The reason is that hardly anybody buys cattle in to rear them here because it's obviously not a fattening area. Connemara is more or less a nursery. The only movement of cattle has been out. So I'm not really exposed to brucellosis that much in the Gaeltacht area. There are some areas up around Loch Corrib and that which are very bad for TB and for brucellosis, and it seems to be associated with the Corrib or something, but it's one of the worst areas in the county.
Now, o sustiera ar ruin. Catalogă sustiera ar ruin, hai tu. Kun je dier niet dubbel als je nu maar zo eens me heen. Okay, that's good.
It's a diesel car, you'll probably be able to hear it. Unfortunately, what happens is you're inclined to drive the thing until it stops. And then panic, and you're looking for lifts home, and you're getting fellas to tow it in, and fellas to tie it together with string and whatever, to get it going again. So, you're going, and you're just going to say, right, if I'm not going to do anything on Monday morning, I'll get the car service, and first thing Monday morning, you have a calf in case it's 30 miles away. You got to go.
Now, as I was saying, one of the main problems here is the deeply indented coastline. So what you have is large, long bays going right in, cutting into the land, which you've got to drive around them, obviously. Now, a good example is that point up there is about a mile from here by sea, and it's just something under 20 miles by road. So when you've got to drive around this thing and places like it once or twice a day, it really adds on to the problem in a huge way and puts hours onto your day.
All right. No, it isn't care.
Oh, but.
What am I?
Oh.
How close are you already, obviously?
Okay.
I'm sure Ben Harkin on you. The most important and the most common animal in the area is the bovine, cows, cattle. You get the odd rare thing cropping up like a smashing hunter galloping around and doing fancy jumps and that, but they're very few and far between. In fact, offhand I can only think of one, a very nice horse. And generally speaking, you're dealing with ponies, which are beautiful animals in themselves, but you don't see that many of them really. She was a nice cow as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, she'd be a good cow.
Okay. Now you could just. What I'm looking for now, Ned, what you should get kind of blood out under the skin and the rest of the place. Just get her front leg off for now. We'll do the same thing with the back. No, I don't see any subcutaneous hemorrhages so far, Helen.
She's a good knife, isn't it?
It won't be long now until it's fairly blunted. When is Tommy Dixon going to come?
Well, he said he'd ring at 5:30. He didn't ring him. The wife was on the phone, like.
You're lucky to have somebody with the dogs.
He mightn't come at all, like.
Oh, you're not talking to himself, no?
No.
There's never any trouble burying them up the country because there's so many knackers around and masters of hounds and this kind of thing, you know.
I know.
Push him there a bit further, okay. Just skin that. This pain thing, the pain isn't it? That's what's getting me, you know?
That's what's getting me, yeah.
Because I don't see, if it was grass chutney, how she would be in such pain, you know?
It lived longer with the animal, shouldn't it?
I would have thought so, yeah. Just get that out of the way of it. Mind that knife, sharp. Quite a number of animals die without us being able to get there in time, etc., before the vet can get to them. And in a situation like that, in any other practice in the country, there meant to be solicitors' letters flying. You know, vet doesn't provide the service, animal dies, fierce trouble, and rightly so. But because there are no branches of the IFA or the ICMSA or anything like that, there's no cohesive pressure to be put on anybody to provide this. Everybody gives out to the vet, if they do. And most people adopt a very philosophical attitude to the whole thing and don't really give out at all if an animal dies. You know, it's just one of the things, it's God's will in that, and the fact that the vet didn't get there for 2 days or something, it doesn't seem to make that much difference. Apart from, as I said, the huge distances involved in driving, you also have some places where there aren't any roads going to at all. There are about 3 or 4 places where you've got to hoof the last and walk the last maybe 2 miles to get to the place. And there are also, I think, something in the region of 24 islands which I service. And these are done by Curragh.
Ah, Betty. What's your dogs?
Huh?
Shot on the banner. I'll keep out my hood.
Tá? Temos que aprender a entender o homem no resto. E bem,
The majority of the people in this area are involved in agriculture, and therefore I think that they're entitled to a reasonable veterinary service. With the time available, all I can provide is a fire brigade service. I rarely have the time to sit down with somebody and explain to him the cause of his problems or how to even to prevent these problems cropping up again. And this is what's needed most in the area, is advice on matters of dosing, vaccination, hygiene, nutrition, and all these other subjects.
No, tan crap each nigoni have left. Ich habe einen infectious down Gerber.
Let's do.
Ich habe einen nicht 10 and he test no close with that on.
Now, in an attempt to overcome that problem, I did a series of programs on Radio Gaeltacht for up to a year, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago. And whereas it helped to some extent, I don't think that it was really doing more than scratching the surface. No, this is nobody matter. Good day, buddy.
A couple of seconds in the show. You're going to click and show it, huh? Could you do click and double in? You're going to a couple of bacon, you're going to get it, I'll tell you.
Spannend.
Just go let you, just you want. Just can you let you. Can you click and deal? You're going to a couple of bacon, you're going to find the horse in the right to go in great.
And then how it is to go with.
I'm going to make your rash reach. The fine, isn't it? Ah, she's letting take 3 go. That's all fish in this, right? Screwing. Thought the peanut could come first.
Yes. As I can't Willie, that's officially engaged, I'll say. Find your fight ticket. You more on can take it, dear. You must often when you're at the walk, and the barely hand if you can.
Oh, tower.
Do you know?
I say, yeah.
Caught this year.
Aaron Lepekram.
Da hier het hele groot vis, kan die eten in tussen.
Ach, hier is China. Het is een beetje boekje nu. Ik zeg dat je zegt ze zegt.
Put you what it in show.
Maar die niet nieuw gewoon meer al hier. Al toch, die moet ze hier negen gaan ik wel.
Ja, niet zien waarom ze. Moet je nou zeggen gaan hebben?
Hier, hoor.
Kijk, hoe was je, master?
Hier gan isteach sa teachan sin.
Dar is dóí das go
Deach na heach ortaí?
Ha?
Deach na
Ní ha chun teachcha tímú.
Right. Hiú sí níos go fadar na seo, ba?
Iúil,
Hit sin sin.
sin sin.
Ní tú an forgad na tá duine ar hása de.
Níor mar bhí mé ceapan nach in trean lasa.
Mas na céime di sí?
Beidir bucéad níos mó.
Na méid.
Ja nach ní ach bu céad chudanas ne.
Tá nó di cean héana bhád níos móna sin bhhartain a ré.
Ó.
Sé tú mar cúpla seaite se amach tá ceappa go túas go sé roiarna ar bhí sé tití tá sean deachrééis ó dhéanana go, bud dú? Tá sé an chuileríonna sé gnáam seo. Bhín si do chuiristeach brisisteach dorse chuilhorta i gché neorna. Chuine nó de bes tá sé ar fad páise mar deara.
Beidir cóir déan andaras miniu.
Há?
Beidir cóir déan andaras.
Chuir gas na go deaga sí as a méid seam. Well, tréis caiici sé rís déach go buoch sé tí rís, mar gealar go mechan ar go máiste déanta sti a botógann sin náitiúil se seo. A déad chun cenne tarn go do bhós a bhirtíí. Tu go sí as mar go cheán beidir tína ce go léanta úsús le caiiciis. Go tubann sin builtar síos rééisí le tinnis. Agus ag stéitin sétána mar geala gúil ar domáiste déanta sin seo. Tá sí seanist an dáfa go míú agus tá sí fáit ruiste síos ar fad. Agus na ír ní mór an seansaige agus fiú an má dámarach sí héin, beidir an caiici sé goíoch sí go don ríise agus go binne.
Tá sé nó hí ceáil.
Yeah. A chaine sem mai bí chuine chlúdaí agus gomáin.
Gur míad maithe ar an nuas.
Na chéan trúíon sem am.
Bhfuil cháil mar céile gáil léana chuin agus is mé sé sin ná ballan.
Níor san héin. Chuirthart a chrodí a chailinn.
In a way, it's much more satisfying than in a normal practice because if you save, supposing you've say a cow that's going to die or a cow that looks very bad, and you save her and you're in this area here, you're talking about saving 25%, maybe even 50%, or maybe even 100% of somebody's herd at times. Sometimes you feel more like a doctor than a vet because you're saving the member of the family, the one and only cow. It must be nearly the same satisfaction as a doctor gets for saving some human being because, as I say, the cows have become such a personal, have such a personal relationship with the family, etc. It can be enormously satisfying at times. Also, very wearying when you do see something that you know blooming well would have lived had you got there in time, and despite your best efforts, you don't get there in time. And at times you just feel so depressed about the whole thing that you feel like just chucking the whole thing in.
Normally, vets use radio telephones to communicate with their base, and these are very handy things. But because of the size of the area and all the mountains, it just doesn't work in this area. So what I do is, before I leave any area, I ring home to see if there are any other calls, which would save me another journey back to the same area again. And I must say, when coming to the end of the evening, this time of the day, it's a great relief to ring up and find that there's nothing else waiting for me at home.
Hello, 83138. Hello? Fine, how are you? Grand, thanks. I have a few more calls for you, okay? Margaret Flaherty, Letter Callow North. A cow off form, due to calf in 1 month. Okay? Nan Grealish, Wickenock. She didn't leave any message. John Connolly, Baladangan, Clenting. Now there's one from Michael Ward, and it's very urgent. The calf's sick. All right? That's the lot. Okay, will you be late? All right, well, I'll leave your dinner down the bottom of the oven, so okay? Right, see you later. Bye.
insofar as I was born and reared in Connemara, I think I'd obviously like to stay here and to work here. But what you like and what you have to do are often two different things.
Leaving aside my personal situation, there's a very real danger that the service in the area might cease altogether. I've approached successive governments and explained the position, but the matter is ignored completely. Perhaps their intention is to turn the area into a huge industrial estate or even a Yogi Bear type national park, but certainly agriculture doesn't come high on the list of priorities for Connemara.